I'll just run because I've made a bunch of notes.
Like I said, you want me to go ahead and do it, but it doesn't matter to me. It's Susan.
Okay. Oh, man. Where's my gavel?
This,
I don't have a
I
gavel.
don't know.
But we are, and I'm going to call this meeting to order. If we, I'm calling to this Mary Ellen, come on. Yeah, we're getting there.
Well, it's a great day to be a Republican. Yes! Lord, we pray right now for the Republican Party of Florida. Father, we pray a hedge of protection against every candidate, every elected official, every person that is serving armed forces, police, firemen. Lord, keep them safe, keep them protected. Father, we ask for that awesome hedge of protection. And Lord, we pray for the wisdom of Solomon when decisions need to be made. We pray for peace and unity. And we pray in the 2020 election that President Donald Trump will be reelected.
All right. Pledge of Allegiance this evening with the Tampa Bay Trump Club President Jim Stratton. Okay, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Recognize our veterans. If you are a United States veteran, please stand so you can be recognized. And before we move on, I'd like to just take a moment of silence for the victims of the recent El Paso and Dayton shootings. Okay, thank you. Our elected officials with us this evening, we have State Senator Ed Hooper, Senate District 16. Senator Joe 3. School District 6. Seminole Mayor Leslie Waters. Tyler Payne. State Committeewoman Nancy Riley. And State Committeeman Dan Tucker. Candidates with us this evening for Congressional District 13, Sheila Griffin. For
Senator Sarah Malo. For Congressional Matt Becker. For Congressional District 13, George Buck. For Congressional Kathy Castor's district, Jeremy Brown. For Congressional District 13, Amanda Mackey. I say this with bated breath. For re-election, Mayor City of Seminole, Leslie Waters. And for District 1, Stephanie Meyer. Okay, our club, Pinellas Suncoast Black Republican Club, Sheila Griffin. The Club, Bruce Rector. The Pinellas County Hispanic Republican Outreach, Shelley Hernandez Miller. The Mary Ellen Crowder. The Tampa Bay Trump Club, James Stratton. The Ron Lazarnik. And the Pinellas County Young Republicans, Lucas Mikowski. Okay, at this time I'd like to have a call for quorum. Janice? Is she coming? All right. Thank you, Janice. At this time, I entertain a call for approval of the agenda. All in favor, say aye. Aye. The ayes have it. The agenda is approved. The minutes have been distributed. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Are there any corrections to the minutes? If there are no corrections, I'll have a call for approval of the minutes. All in favor, say aye. Minutes are approved. The treasurer's report is in your packets, and it has been submitted for audit. So at this time, we'll move on to tonight's chairman's remarks. I know that a lot of you, we are all in tune with the certain current events that are monopolizing the news cycle and social media. So I wanted to shift gears a bit tonight and discuss what I think should be of a grave concern to all of us, and that is the continued and heightened abuse of our constitutional amendment process. We are seeing efforts to ban a certain class of firearms, impose a hefty $15 hour minimum wage on Florida's businesses, burden the state's budget with Medicaid expansion, legalize a recreational drug, and completely upend the way that parties choose their candidates for the general election. These proposals are nothing more than political chicanery meant to accomplish two ends: to drive leftist voters to the polls in November of 2020 and to bypass the legislative processes that are the cornerstone of our Republican form of government. I have a 5-month-old in the house. That's the dark eyes. Granted, this is not the first time we have seen this kind of abuse. In fact, it seems that we've become accustomed to it here in Florida of late. Our constitutional amendment process is being relegated to a conduit for absolute democracy rather than a corridor for carefully crafting the role of government and limiting its encroachment on our most basic rights. Floridians, including John Morgan, need to remind themselves of what a constitution is. Being a lawyer, God bless us, I wasn't expecting that response. Law Dictionary, which defines constitution as follows: the fundamental and organic law of a country or state that establishes the institutions and apparatus of government, defines the scope of sovereign powers, and guarantees civil rights and civil liberties. Oxford's dictionary's definition is even more concise: a body of fundamental principles or established precedents according to which a state or other organization is acknowledged to be governed. I think those definitions are pretty clear-cut. A constitution is a founding document, a basic enunciation of how government is to be established and continued, what basic civil rights shall not be infringed upon, and what other fundamental principles shall guide the republic that springs forth from its manifestation. For you business owners out there, the Constitution is the Articles of Incorporation, yet today's special interests treat it as if it were the bylaws, the employee manual, the policies and procedures, and even the employee benefits package. To any citizen that has taken time to understand the foundations of our republic, the trend of utilizing the amendment process to create, in essence, a shadow direct democracy poses a danger to the very fabric of our Florida Republic. James Madison, often looked upon as one of the founding fathers of the U.S. Constitution, upon which our Florida Constitution is modeled, cautioned against direct democracy in the Federalist Papers, which I think some Americans still read today. Speaking of the assembly of individual citizens in comparison to a legislative body, he wrote, "In all various numerous assemblies, of whatever character is composed, passion never fails to wrest the scepter from reason." Mocking what he perceived to be the failed direct democracy of Athens, he quipped, "Had every Athenian citizen been a Socrates, every Athenian assembly would still have been a mob." In other words, no matter the education and sophistication of the citizen, a direct democracy that lacks the checks on majority rule and the cooling effect of a deliberative legislative process is doomed to fail. Madison further identified the main difference between a democracy and a republic: the delegation of power to a government to small number of citizens elected by the rest. It is sad that more and more Americans fail to appreciate that important distinction. The purpose of this delegation of government to a small group of elected citizens is evident in his Federalist number 63, where Madison wrote, and I quote, "So there are particular moments in public affairs when the people, stimulated by some irregular passion, or some illicit advantage, or misled by the artful misrepresentations of interested men, may call for measures which they themselves will afterwards be the most ready to lament and condemn. In these critical moments, how salutary will be the interference of some temperate and respectable body of citizens in order to check the misguided career and to suspend the blow mediated by the people against themselves, until justice, reason, and truth can regain their authority over the public mind. What bitter anguish would not the people of Athens have often escaped if their government had contained so provident a safeguard against the tyranny of their own passions." In essence, what we now know to be a legislature was implemented to have a cooling effect on the passions of the mob and to allow for the often capricious will of the public to be moderated by a slow, deliberative process. That slow will not serve to cool the passions of the public if it is bypassed altogether. And that is what we are seeing today with our constitutional amendments. It is the province of the legislature to debate a minimum wage, to consider its effects on the workers, on business, on the cost of goods, and on the delivery of services. The legislature has the time and resources to properly investigate the pros and cons and to weigh them appropriately. Likewise, it is the province of the legislature to determine whether the economic benefits and conservation of judicial resources in legalizing recreational drugs outweighs the deleterious effects on public health and society. While it is the province of a constitution to state in general terms how the elections of a state are to be conducted, it is the role of the legislature to fill in the gaps and make laws governing political parties and their primary elections. Such decisions are to be made slowly and carefully, as was envisioned by the founders of our republic. What is even more alarming is that lately we have seen out-of-state money and out-of-state people pushing the state's constitutional amendment agenda. It's as if there is some nefarious scheme to use the amendment process to turn Florida into California. No thanks, we're all stocked up on crazy. Some of the firms operating here from out of state have been accused of wrongdoing in other states and have even had workers convicted of fraud in Florida and elsewhere. Fortunately, thanks to the foresight of Republican legislators like our own Jamie Grant, reforms are beginning to take shape. The legislature recently enacted laws tightening security controls on signature gathering efforts, the effect of which has already hampered out-of-state funding for the groups pushing the Medicaid expansion amendment. So much so that their efforts are being postponed to 2022. If we want a republic, we have to fight for it. That's why we must guard against and heavily scrutinize any proposed amendment. We all must make an effort to educate ourselves so we may educate the voters when we canvass for our Republican candidates. Constitutional amendments have to be one of our priorities. Educate yourselves, your neighbors, your colleagues, and importantly, continue to support our legislators as they seek further reforms, because they will no doubt take heat for it from the left, and they will need your support. And that's tonight's chairman's message. All right, at this time, it's an honor for me to introduce our guest speaker tonight. He is a former state representative out of Sarasota and currently serves the Senate District, serves as a Florida State Senator from Senate District 23. Most of you may know him as the chairman of the Republican Party of Florida. He has been a Trump supporter, an ardent Trump supporter from the very beginning. And most importantly, in this past legislative session, he led the effort to pass the ban on sanctuary cities in Florida. Please, let's give a warm.
Thank you, Todd, and thank you, Pinellas County, for letting me be here today. Are we ready to win in 2020? It's such an honor for me to be here to speak to you and to basically have this job where I get to go out and praise the president, praise Donald Trump, praise our great governor, Ron DeSantis. Is everybody pretty happy with what he's done? And I'm going club to club, and we're turning these clubs into fight clubs. Are you guys ready to win? Are we ready to fight in 2020? Because I'll tell you what, the Democrats are not going to give us an inch. You could see just all the rhetoric, all the noise that we're hearing from all over the place. It is going to be the most intense rest of the season that you've ever seen, and they probably already have people. The fact that we have so many congressional candidates running for these seats, I think we're going to beat Charlie Crist. I think that the winner of that primary, it's somebody actually said, Joe, what if the Charlie Crist wants to become a Republican again? I'm not kidding you. Somebody would ask me that. I said, we have plenty of candidates. They're going to take that mantle, and they're going to do an amazing job in D.C. representing this district. And I really think that we have a couple of candidates that have a chance to really give them a hard time. And I think we are going to take that back. And I think we're going to deliver Florida once again for the president, because if we can't win Florida, of course, if you've seen all the models, we can't win the presidency, period. So thank you for participating in the process. Thank you for coming out today. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the governor, a little bit about the president, but I'm going to talk to you as a senator first and foremost, you have like the two best senators in the entire state in Pinellas County. Ed Hooper, right here. And Jeff Brandis is amazing. Every once in a while I see Jeff Brandis vote nay on some of these bills because he's more of a libertarian, and sometimes I'll change my vote because I do believe in freedom. But Ed here is literally my roommate because his office is right next to mine. So and our walls are so thin, when he's talking, I can hear him. And then whenever I need to say no to somebody, I say, well, just go talk to Ed, and Ed will tell you where we're going to be. And Ed's usually the bad guy, but he is really just a phenomenal, and when I say phenomenal senator, and he's not only my roommate, but we're teammates in the Senate, and it's we accomplish so much as a body and as a state. And I tell people this last legislative session, if you're a baseball fan, it was like hitting one home run after the next for conservative causes. And I'm going to talk to you about the three top issues that we passed this past cycle. First and foremost was, the chairman, what you were talking about in your presentation earlier was the constitutional process and how it's sacred, and how outside special interest groups have basically, if you can't pass it through the legislature, you could pay $5 million. You could have 50 people drop shipped from New York or one of these Massachusetts, one of these liberal states, and they'll basically get these petitions signed, and they'll put anything on the ballot. And the purpose is not always to pass, right? This $15 an hour minimum wage, recreational marijuana. You're going to see Medicare for all. The problem is it's the intent is to drive their voters, even though there's some statisticians out there say there's no correlation between increased turnout in these issues. But what they're trying to do is they're trying to drive turnout based on these single issues to make sure that they have the votes to win Florida. That's how important Florida is. But what we did in the legislature is we basically said we've had enough. Yeah. We're not going to circumvent the legislature. We're going to do it the right way. We're going to return the power back to the people. And what the Democrats, they can't argue with the fact that what we're trying to do is we're trying to make sure that if it's a citizen initiative process, that it's the citizens that are directing it, it's the citizens that are driving it. And so Ed Hooper and Jeff Brandis and the rest of the House and Senate and Governor DeSantis, that's the most important issue that we passed this past session. Number one. You don't really hear a lot of people talking about it because people don't want to admit the fact of what a big deal it is. But moving forward, you're going to see a lot less of these these special interest groups getting involved in this petition process. Yeah, that's good. You should clap for that. Probably one of the second biggest issue was the anti-Semitism bill. And you say, why is the anti-Semitism bill, why was it so important, right? Of course, it passed after there was a shooting at a temple in California. But if you've seen it, our governor has made such a concerted effort to go after and engage the members of the Jewish faith. And what you saw in his election, remember, how many people know, how many votes did our governor win by? 33,000 votes. 33,000 votes. He did 8 points better with members of the Jewish faith than our president, Donald Trump, in 2 years. 8 points. That 8 points is the 33,000 people. But he has been, and we've, as a party, we've reached out and embraced him because we're D.C., in the rhetoric that's coming out of D.C. and from the Democrats at the national stage. Here we are, is we have a great opportunity, and you say, how can we rebuild our party? Well, let's go after some of these groups that are being abused. And certainly the members of the Jewish faith are one of those. And the bill that we passed, and I happen to be able to sponsor that bill as the primary sponsor, was a bill where we changed the definition of what anti-Semitism is in our school system. We changed it to the same definition where the State Department is and what about 38 other national organizations define it as. And then more importantly, as we said, that local school boards have to start treating, and the education community in general, they have to treat anti-Semitism the same way that you would treat racism. It will continue to drive us in their camp, and we will continue to work on issues where we could show that it's the Republicans that are caring, that we're reaching out, we're doing what it needs to And that's in direct contrast with especially the what's coming out of the House of Reps at the AOC and these Democrats in D.C. And probably the most important bill was, of course, the ban on sanctuary cities, which is what some people have called the strongest ban of sanctuary cities in the entire country. Of course, it was my favorite bill too, and we have to differentiate. It's not about Republicans, and somebody said read your tweets today, but if I were to read you some of my tweets today, it's that I'm a racist, I'm a xenophobe, I'm all these other things because, of course, I have my immigration tour lined up. But the problem is this is not about legal immigration. This is about illegal immigration. It's about the inaction of D.C. that has failed all of us as Floridians in trying to take the actions that we could take to protect ourselves and to make sure that public safety remains number one. I want to tell you how important it is to have a governor like Ron DeSantis. You know, his leadership, you know, people call it bold, but it's bold, and he's truly an MVP because we had about 244 amendments piled onto that bill. And we had to pass it not once out of the Senate, twice. Now, remember, it's never even passed the Senate, not even a single committee before this past year. And it's passed the House the last couple years, and I think it's been up the last 6 years for consideration. And 244 amendments. I'm just going to take you all the way to the last day. There was lots of back and forth. I got called by 3 billionaires the last week to try to add some additional language on. And when I came in that morning of the last day of session, I was told about an amendment that came on, and we have 23 Republican senators. We had one Republican senator that was not on the team from the get-go, so that's 22. A tie, 20-20, means the bill is dead, so you have to have 21. So there was an amendment put forward, and it was agreed to basically by both sides. And so what I did was I brought it to the governor, and of course the governor was at a meeting, and so we stormed this prayer breakfast, got the governor out, he engaged, and at the last second we saved the entirety of the bill that was passed based off of, by the way, your sheriff, Gualtieri, right? That's your guys' sheriff? Absolute superstar, best sheriff in the state outside of Sarasota, but it's he deserves Sheriff of the Year for the whole country. He did win that. And you know why he won that is because he's on the front lines on this issue. The sanctuary cities, all the detainee requests, outstanding, making sure that all the laws we pass. And right from the get-go, I was working with Sheriff Gualtieri. Out of all the sheriffs, he was the one who stepped up. And we were working hand in hand, making sure that what we passed was practically applicable and that did the job. And if it wasn't for him, and he guided us, and he talked a lot of people off the ledge, but he was just an absolute superstar in terms of the overall process and really helped make sure that we passed a bill that ended up being, like I said, what some people call the strongest sanctuary city ban in the entire country. But it's so those are the three good bills that Republicans passed. But this entire session, like I said, it was one conservative victory after the next. And that doesn't come about on accident. It takes real leadership. And you got to give Ron DeSantis, our governor, who, like I said, has been doing an absolutely incredible job across the board. I mean, who here likes some of his environmental things that he's doing on behalf of the state? Democrats don't own the environment. We should own it. Floridians own it. And what he's done is he's put it front and center and made it a focal point of our party. And he's doing such a great job. I've never seen a Republican governor since the guy used to be from here, your congressman. He had some pretty high numbers, but he had no backbone, right? Ron DeSantis has not only a backbone, but he's showing true leadership. He's getting his numbers up by showing people that what you could do when you have a conservative agenda and you can do good things for the state of Florida and you protect our environment. We funded it with, I think, $200 million more this year, and we're doing all types of things. And his agenda, you may not see it with all the bills that we passed, but the changes that he's making on our water boards, the changes he's making within DEP, within staff, I will tell you, it's been such a transformation, and I love our previous administration. But what Ron DeSantis is doing is he's saving our state from environmental disasters that we all want to make sure we avoid, because that's why we live in Florida. So he deserves a huge round of applause. Let's give our governor a superstar. And I'll open up to questions, but first I want to talk about our president, what we're doing here to win in 2020. So we've already hired 18 staffers. We probably have a staffer that's been assigned to this area. We're having a big state meeting in Destin, Florida, next weekend. Everybody's invited to come. We're shifting some things up, but we've hired 18 new staffers, and for the first time in a long time, you have the RNC that connected with the presidential campaign at the national level, and now you have the Republican Party of Florida connected not only with the governor, because remember, I was the Trump co-chairman for the state of Florida in the 2016 campaign. I was picked to serve as chairman by this, of course, my great friends helped elect me here, Nancy, Todd, and Dan. But the governor helped pick me, and so we have the coordination of both the governor, the president, and the entire force of the country and the Republican Party all coming down. We're all united. And we have a lot of amazing things in store. Like November 4th, I think we're going to have our big Statesman of the Year event back in at Disney World. And I think you'll want to come because we're going to have a very special guest along with our governor. And it should be a home run event. But a lot of great things are going on. The party's moving. We're raising money. And I'm happy to answer any questions regarding the Trump campaign, regarding the Republican Party of Florida, or what we're going to do, or Senate stuff. Go ahead.
Yes, I remember back when all that fraud was going on down in Dallas County. It seems like they were sending from Washington DOJ people down here to investigate what happened, and I've never heard a word since. Do you have any idea if they're still checking that out?
What I can say is she's been replaced. I think that was where Brenda Snipes was. And Snipes has been replaced with a competent person who is going to do the job right. Where those votes came in, remember Scott won by 10,000 and DeSantis won by 33,000. It started off much higher than that, and they kept on finding more and more votes. I've been wondering the same question, what happened? But however, the good news is for the 2020 cycle, what we want, it doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat or an independent, you want one vote, one person, one vote. Easy to vote, hard to cheat, right? Those two people that replaced those election supervisors, remember, 65 out of 67 counties got it right. Only 2 were failures, and those 2 have been replaced. And I'm very optimistic that we'll have a flawless election next session. Yes.
Senator, what are red flag gun confiscation laws going to cause us? All the laws we have passed up to now have to confiscate. Can you explain that? There's a lot of people so angry about this.
Yeah, on the state level, I think what our president, Bill Galvano, has called for a special hearing. I think the likelihood of any additional red flag laws passing in the state of Florida is probably 0. But it's good to have a hearing to find out what's going to happen. Yes, sir.
If they go through with this, you realize Republicans will have a hard road home in 2020 if they pass federal gun laws, federal red flag laws.
Yeah, well, on the federal side, we'll see what happens. But my guess is, yeah. Yep. I'm sorry, say that question one more time. Oh, the trade war. Yeah, well, here's what I can talk about. We have the best economy in years. Since Donald Trump has taken over, the stock market's gone up $6 trillion. It's everybody's 401ks are doing much better. Now, we want to see better living wages, but however, everything's a work in progress. But what I'll do is I'll highlight the low unemployment levels across the board for everybody, minorities, younger adults, and the opportunities that exist if you want to take the opportunity and go create your own path. Well, that's a good question. And one of the bills that I introduced last year, they got a couple of hearings and passed the House. Again, it goes back to I have a basic philosophy: easy to vote, hard to cheat. And so my bill was simple. If you have a license, right? Anybody have a driver's license? You remember you have to take all that stuff in, and then if you go and you get a jury summons and you respond with, I can't serve on a jury because I'm not a citizen, right? They have a record of that. My thing is just compare it with the voter rolls of the county. Seems pretty simple, right? These are self-identified people who said they're not citizens, and on a monthly basis they should check it. You wouldn't believe how much resistance to even that is. But that's why we have to focus on voter integrity issues. Everybody, doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat, you should want fair elections, one person, one vote, easy to vote, hard to cheat. That's my line. Yes. So that's a great question, and I know there's one Republican senator that would like to have some licenses for some of these illegals, and my idea, and hopefully when we complete our immigration tour, I'll be able to talk about that issue, and I'm glad it's important to you. It's important to a lot of people, making sure, and I actually thought about trying to get a constitutional amendment to prevent illegals from getting any type of driver's license or any type of card. And so you can expect me to lead the fight on that for sure. So yeah. But not that's designated from the state of Florida. That's what we'll control. Yeah. That's right. Yes, ma'am. Because every state is in control of their own voter link. Now, there is a group out there, and I think there's maybe up to like 18 states that shares information between the states to try, and we're trying to continue to encourage more states to sign up. But it's just like the local jurisdictions. Why does Pinellas get it right and Sarasota get it right and Broward get it wrong? It's local control, local leadership. We did create, after a couple of these debacles, trying to statewide standards and additional standards, but hopefully more states will join that group. I don't know what it's called, but I think there's 18 states, because one of the bills that I was trying to run had exactly that, was encouraging that. Yes, ma'am. Well, it's interesting you mentioned that. So listen, I filed a lot of bills. So I filed 69 policy bills in my first session, and one of my bills was to hold these big corporations accountable for blocking conservatives, because it's a violation of your free speech. Basically, what happened, and my point is this: when you have a site or a network that hosts hundreds of millions of people, basically, you're no longer talking about it's basically open season, and for them to be able to block conservatives the way they did. I think what my bill did was it fined them $100,000 every time they did it, so they would stop real quick. And that bill has since been filed. I think I was the first state senator in the country to file that bill, and I think it's now been filed in 8 different states. So what will happen is we'll continue to build momentum, and hopefully we'll guarantee conservatives' right to freedom of speech. So, yes, sir.
Chairman Gruters, Kevin Lighthouse with Manatee County. You have a challenge. You're supposed to blessing the curse of wearing these hats. As chairman of the Florida Republican Party, as well as having a certain suspicion from the Senate, this
Yeah, very good question. And the great thing about that question is it's a local control issue. People talk about preemption all the time and trying to return the power back to local jurisdictions. And what you're talking about is the idea that some people could be armed inside school systems. In some counties, they can't afford sheriffs, but I have 3 children, 2 of them in the public schools, 1 on the way. And when I went and dropped them off this morning, we have a Sarasota County Sheriff's deputy there. And I believe in our sheriff system. I believe in the security that's in place in Sarasota County. And so that's my position with that. Yes. Listen, I think that same thing. Where's Paul Benacourt, your former chairman? Is he still here? There he is, over there. So he's a CPA. I'm a CPA. I process hundreds of returns. I can promise you that almost everybody's getting some type of more money back. We consistently lose the communication game as Republicans, and we need to be more aggressive out there. And I think social media has helped. But what we got to do is the problem is I worked for a guy named Vern Buchanan. You guys know him. He's the congressman. So I was his guy, one of his political guys for 10 years. He would always say, as a Republican, we got to raise more money because we're not only facing our Democrat opponent, but we're facing the press too. And that's exactly what we're facing. We have to overcome both those challenges, and we just have to be better, and we have to be consistent in our efforts. But the Democrats routinely run circles around us. But I think we're staffing up. We're getting a lot better at the national level. And certainly there's nobody better, and some people may not like all the tweets, but there's nobody better communicating than our president, Donald Trump. Yes, sir. Go ahead. Say again. Well, certainly, emergency care is guaranteed. You can go to any hospital, and Republicans, we are leading the fight. We did a lot of things from a healthcare perspective to try to make it more affordable here in the state of Florida. And what we did is we changed the law so you could buy different policies from out of state that are shorter in duration than most of the ACA plans. And what we also did was we made sure that all those plans continued to have that pre-existing conditions to make sure all these people that are getting insurance were covered. Yes, sir. Thank you. 2 more questions. 1, 2. 1, 2. Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, great question. What's the difference between the 2016 and 2020 cycle? Well, in 2016, we were all scattered, right? And even once we won the primary, I can tell you because I was with them from the very, very beginning, all the way through the general election, we had a hard time of having a unified force. We had a hard time with our collective efforts, and but once we won, we've never taken our foot off the gas, period. And where the Democrats are fractured now with 24 plus candidates, Republicans are so united behind our president, more so than any cycle in the last 40 years. We have somebody that we put on a pedestal, and he deserves to be there because the job that he's done as our president has united our party more so than anything else. And the fact that all these Democrats are attacking as a fellow deplorable, as these guys calling all of Trump's supporters racist and bad and evil, all that's doing is empowering our guys even more to go out there and go back to my original statement of we're turning all these clubs into fight clubs, because that's what we're doing. We're going to fight every day between now and the election. And let me just give you this. We may have had 40 staffers, right, throughout the 2016 campaign at the very end, very height of the election. I think we may hire 1,000 staffers in Florida. We're going to have so many people in Florida that you're not going to be able to walk more than a couple of blocks before you find one of our other staffers. So, if you have resumes, that's right. If you have resumes, we're going to take the last two. If we have resumes, you can send them to your chairman, Todd, and we will make sure we try to include them if you have good people.
I do have one question for you, because right now, I don't like to think that our president is going to be a shoo-in, because it's almost like bad luck that we're expanding for ourselves. What do you think will be the biggest challenge in his being reelected? Is there any particular challenges that you, particular one,
Well,
besides the media?
the fact that we have such a headwind in front of us with all the media, that's the biggest challenge we face, because from a metric standpoint, look at all the successes across the board, right? But he gets credit for nothing. And I do tell people, I compare him, people don't like when I say this, but he's like an Olympic figure skater. He gets a 10 out of 10 on technical and a 6 out of 10 on artistic. And if we were just able to prove that by 2 points, we would be completely unbeatable. But here's the deal. We are united in Florida. We have a great plan in Florida. We have a governor who cares about the president, and I tell people that we have a governor that's in office because of the president of the United States. And now our president's going to get reelected to the White House because we have a governor who's doing such an incredible, magnificent job. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you guys today, and I'll be here till the end so you can ask me additional questions. Thanks, guys.